Hey, everybody, welcome to the Pucknology Writers Room, show 30, which is fantastic. Tonight, a little bit different. Yes, absolutely. Applause all around. Today, a little bit different lineup here. We have, obviously, with me, as always, now that he's on the show, Mr. Zach Devine. I'm going to call you Kevin Devine and just mix everything up.
Hello, Ian. Hello, Hockey Jerk. How is everyone this fine Sunday evening?
I didn't even introduce Hockey Jerk. I don't even have to. Anyway, Hockey Jerk's here. Yay.
Oh, my bad.
Hello.
We'll live that.
Thanks, Zach.
No problem, homie.
So because it's the All-Star, it's All-Star weekend, we're just going to kind of half-ass things today too, just so you're well aware coming in. I got like half notes here, and it's just completely half-assed. So I hope you enjoy the show. So let's start with the quick notes. Pardon?
We've already said a swear a minute in.
Oh man, we're the worst.
Wah,
right.
wah, wah.
Okay, I guess since we're going to let's talk about the All-Star weekend. What did you like? What didn't you like? Did you even care? Hockey Jerk, let's start with you. Be a jerk.
You know what? I went into the All-Star break with genuine excitement and interest. I mean, I'll watch any hockey I can, and it was nice to see, especially in the third game, some of that, like, if you will, and I love watching 2-on-0s as well. I always get a kick out of those.
What about you, Zach? What did you like? What didn't you like?
I like that the majority of the San Jose Sharks finally got a day off.
Martin Jones did not, though.
No. Well, Corey Crawford sure did today. Boy, he was. I tweeted out, it's like he might as well just be taking a nap up on top of that net. He wanted to be anywhere but there, and I watching him get down to the butterfly, you actually could witness the effort. You could watch it. He was like, "Oh God, I've got a butterfly." Okay.
Oh man.
I like to think that if he had been forced to play in that third game, he would have missed his flight to the Bahamas. So
that's fair. I thought Rask was another goalie who didn't really have a good showing. It seemed like after a while it was like just starting to question some of the things he was doing, where it's like, are you even trying at this point? Like, you realize the shootout thing was yesterday, right? But yeah, I enjoyed I enjoyed the games as much as you can enjoy the games. I miss the skills competition, which is not like me at all. But as you can see, I've got this garbage on my neck right now. So I was just taking good painkillers and sleeping. But I don't know. I mean, it was all right. The first two games were interesting, where they're just, got the score run up. And then even the championship game, I didn't think it was terrible. But I mean, it's, I like the 3-on-3 format because although maybe there is a little bit of like you were pointing with Crawford, like the effort may not be fully there, but I think it takes away from some of the gripes about the All-Star game. Like, no hitting affair, but when have you ever seen anyone really line anyone up in a 3-on-3 overtime period? Probably never. So I think the format kind of lends itself to that a little bit, but I mean, it's still the All-Star game. The guys are just there to be there, and I mean, Crosby actually showed up. That impressed me. I think he should be the MVP for just showing up.
You actually took the flight we booked for you. You are our MVP.
Pretty much. Like, how many times has he dodged the All-Star game?
All the times.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
I could just totally see all the East All-Stars like, oh, Sid's not coming. He never comes. And then Sid walks through the door and he's like, what's up?
Yeah. How many $100 bets got, somebody goes, oh, no. And
oh, we had to because of the 100 award. That's true. Kevin's not here, but he always leaves us wonderful questions when he's not here because he wants to still be on the show without being on the show, which is kind of garbage if you ask me. Kevin's question is it suspicious how the NHL decided not to release numbers on the voting this year after what happened last year with John Scott? How convenient. What do you
I know we're all Kevin.
We are all Kevin.
We are all Kevin. This particular Kevin, at times, puts his tinfoil hat on just a wee bit snug. And I think that that's another case of this. They did away with a lot of the voting options because of the John Scott issue. Not releasing the numbers. It's a game for the kids. It's a game for the sponsors. It's a game for the corporate people. The numbers don't matter. Even the players, it doesn't really matter. Anything to speed this whole process along, I'm all for it. And so of not having to release the numbers so you don't have to cook the books on the back end makes it go quicker, I'm for it.
What do you think, Jerk?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with Zach. It is for the sponsors. It's for the kids. It's a fluff piece. You're going there to screw around and have a vacation, and I don't know. For me personally, the voting tallies don't really affect me, just because it's obvious the NHL has an idea of who they want there, which is why they put in the anti-John Scott rule to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Haley is not an all-star.
While his Corsi for percentage would suggest otherwise, listeners at home.
Listeners at home. Yeah, look, I don't really care one way or the other. I think that, there's, last year when people were crying that John Scott was there, we're talking about the sanctity of a vote where you can vote 10 times a day.
Exactly.
Like there's no, sanctity and the All-Star game should never be in the same sentence. It's just, it's a gimmick. It's for the fans. It's for the kids mostly. I agree with that. I mean, when I was a kid, man, the All-Star game weekend, that was, I circled that crap on the calendar. It was awesome when you're a kid, but as I've grown old and more curmudgeon-y and angry, I still watch it, but it's not like I watch it like with the wide-eyed optimism that I did before when I was 7. I don't know. I don't know if it was anything like poor voter turnout or anything else. I just think, it doesn't matter. I don't know.
I think it certainly matters less. And last year, a guy like John Scott, that was the story. And you had everyone tuning in for the story. And then Gary Bettman, lost complete and total control over the situation, and it spiraled out of control, making it even more of a story. I mean, that literally, if Bettman would have just said, "Hey, this is cool, it's great, haha," it would not have been near what it was last year. It wouldn't have even been close. The story almost became, the fight the power, and so, I don't know. I still watched it. I think watching the 3-on-3, it's made it much more bearable over the 5v5 what it used to be. So, yeah, it's not bad. Not great, but not bad.
For what it is, I think it works. I'm gonna kind of move around the notes here, guys, so just bear with me here. So the NHL did their top 100 players this weekend also, so I figured this should probably go together. Any people that you felt were snubbed, or how did you feel about the list? Anyone that you think should have been on? Anyone you were surprised was actually made the list? Jerk, I'll start with you.
I mean, there were a handful of guys who I thought should have been on the list. Joe Thornton is the obvious one. I thought Jerome McGinley should have been there. I thought Evgeny Malkin should have been there. Marty St. Louis. There were a handful of guys who all should have been there. And, I said it on Twitter yesterday. It's hard to do a 100 list with everybody from the league, because you think about how different the NHL was before the 1990s. It should have been like, pre-modern era, as it's called, and then modern era, because then you get guys who don't make the list that probably should, and then you get people who are on the list that people like me have never even heard of,
Mm-hmm. Zach, what are your thoughts?
For me, the three real big omissions, and I'll go in order. I think Dale Howardchuk not being on that list was an absolute joke.
That's a good pull.
You look at what he did, how he did it, how long he did it. he won cups. He played in the dirtiest, nastiest areas of the ice for 15, 16, 17 years. He was still doing it at a high level on the way out. That was my number one. Like, you've got to be joking. Number two for me was Thornton. All those reasons. And I thought Iginla belonged on there. The thing with Iginla to me, and I know the number, he's got great numbers. I think that's more longevity. He's really been milking it the last year or two. I just feel like he's always been an excellent player. Like, there's nothing generational or pivotal about what he was bringing to it. So I know that's probably not a popular opinion, but I feel like Iginla, he probably should have been on there, but it wasn't a Dale Howard-Chuck moment for me.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jumbo not being on the list. I thought that was kind of criminal. Another player, although I'm trying not to even be homerish here. This is just one of my favorite players of all time. I was surprised Larionov didn't make the list, even though I know most of his big accomplishments were not on an NHL rink, but still, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I'm trying to think of somebody else too that I was really kind of disappointed. And I think you should be able to make a strong case for Evgeny Malkin, to be completely honest, if you're going from guys from today. Anyone that you were like miffed to see make the list, like anyone that you didn't want to see make the list that made the list that really made you scratch your head? Zach, I'll start with you.
Matt Sundin.
Oof. Fair.
I totally don't get that. You have Matt Sundin on there, and you don't have Dale Howard-Chuck. You don't have Joe Thornton, who is the best playmaking center of his generation. I mean, before Connor McDavid came here, who was the best setup man in the NHL?
Right.
And I mean, Joe Thornton has taken nobodies and turned them into rich, contract-laden snipers that get shipped off and, might as well go to Siberia if that's not elite playmaking talent. I mean, Sundin's the same idea. Like, he has good point totals, all those types of things, kind of like a Iginla for me. But what else is there? Was he ever absolutely the elite player, in any skill set of his generation?
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I think Sundin was a hell of a player, but obviously, Sundin's also a player that I could not, change a channel without seeing either. Oh man, yeah, I mean, that's tough. That's a tough one for me, because I do think Sundin was a hell of a player, but when you start stacking all these guys up,
oh no, we're talking about shades of, incremental differences. There's really, if you threw Howard-Chuck, Iginla, Malkin, Sundin, these players all in, you would be completely happy to pull any one of them out of that hat and add them in their prime. The issue is we're trying to delineate which is the most elitist of the elite, and that's hard. Absolutely. I think the problem with doing a list like this is obviously there's just people that, it's just 100 names just doesn't, when you're going to include everybody, like Hockey Jerk said anyway, 100 names. I mean, I understand it's the 100 names, man, just doesn't seem to do justice to some players.
Not only that, but you go up and down that list, and a lot of those players are all, elite players or generational players or whatever you want to call them, for different reasons,
Sure.
Like a guy like, Pavel Datsyuk is a different type of player than a Jaromir Jagr, who's a different type of player than, say, like a Bobby Orr, or just picking three random names. It's
sure.
It's just hard to say, like you say, oh, I have this guy at number 5. Well, I mean, that's your opinion,
Sure. Anyone on the list that made the list that you would have taken off the list, Jerk?
Again, I'm looking at his stats right now, and they're pretty impressive, but at the same time, I've just never really been a Pavel Datsyuk fan. I mean, he's probably the one kind of guy that stood out to me, but if we have to have him there, then I guess it's fine.
So there's a couple of names that bothered me. The first name was Eric Lindros, who, now I understand that, you know, I'm a little bit biased in this, being from the Sioux, but this is a guy who, don't get me wrong, was really dominant when he was healthy, but I just feel like even for the Hall of Fame, like that flame wasn't bright enough long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there. I also have this wonderful dude here who's probably my favorite player outside of the Sharks in the NHL right now, and I don't think he should have been on the list.
No.
Right.
The modern Blackhawk love fest kind of aggravated me a little. I'm not gonna lie. Off ice issues aside, I'm totally fine with Patrick Kane being there. Duncan Keith, yeah, I guess so. Although here's something that's gonna get me hell. I'm just gonna watch the chat now. I think Drew Doughty's a better defenseman than Duncan Keith. That's just me.
And that's not saying much, folks.
Well, hey, I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I mean, if you're gonna take somebody, I'm fine with Patrick Kane being on there.
Yeah.
But Taze, I like Taze a lot, but I don't see, when I think Jonathan Taze, I think really, really good hockey player, but not best 100 of all time.
Well, and that's, you brought up Patrick Kane, and that's kind of what made me mention, Marty St. Louis earlier was, yes, the stats are there and, the longevity was there and franchise player and all that. But you think about what it took to get to the NHL and the things that you had to overcome,
Yep.
We've talked about it before, size being an issue. And it's stuff like that I think should be thrown into it. Yes, stats are important and Stanley Cups are important, I guess.
Sure.
But, just your road to the NHL, I think, should be just as important.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is something we could discuss forever and ever and ever. Sleepy Mofo in the chat, how many won cups but are borderline great? Yeah, there's definitely a few of them on that list. Although I thought the funniest thing was somewhere in my follows, someone was like, Bob Gainey's in there, and I'm like, dude, they made an award for Bob Gainey. Like the Selke Award was made for Bob Gainey. But I don't know. That was the only one that I saw a lot of blowback on, and I was kind of like, really? They made an award for the guy. But all right, moving on. We don't even have Kevin here. Oh, this is bullshit. All right, look it. We have a trade to announce. I can't do the Batman voice. Sorry, guys. So Montreal and Tampa Bay made a trade. Montreal scoops up Nikita Nesterov, 23 years old, left shooting defenseman who's played 119 NHL games, has 8 goals, 20 assists, 30 penalty minutes, and -3. He's also played in 26 playoff games where he has a goal and 6 assists, and 17 penalty minutes. He's a former 5th-round pick of the Lightning. In return, the Lightning get Jonathan Racine, 23-year-old, pretty much looks like he's going to be, I don't know. To me, I looked at the numbers. It looks like an AHL shutdown defenseman. I don't see much there based on what quick reading I was able to do. Also a left shooting defenseman, former 3rd-round pick, and they also gain a 6th-round pick in 2017. What did you guys think of the trade? Why was Tampa so eager to get rid of Nesterov?
I think they've just got a lot of roster decisions to make. They've got some players that are shuffling around. They're beset by injuries. I don't think they're a team that makes it this year. I think that there's just been too much to overcome. Nesterov didn't seem to get a really fair shake in Tampa. So, with Montreal, I think he'll have a better shot. Really, this was just trying to move some assets, a little bit of estate planning, I think. And, I think it's a better trade for Montreal than it is for Tampa Bay. But, sometimes you've got to make these types of moves.
Yeah, Hockey Trick, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Nesterov, he's not like the sexiest defenseman out there, but he can play on your bottom pair, and if necessary, he can play on your 3-4 pair. And really, I just equate this to, Tampa Bay, who they need to re-sign this summer, and kind of being like, we can't give you what you want, so we might as well get an asset for you.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I looked at it too. I think Nesterov definitely still has some upside that we haven't seen yet, but that blue line in Tampa Bay is pretty crowded to begin with, and then you look at the contracts and whatnot, and it makes perfect sense to me. And that was only one trade this week. The Sharks also made a trade with the Ottawa Senators, and I know you've probably heard about this to death, so we won't belabor it too much. To Ottawa obviously goes Tommy Wingels and 70% of Tommy Wingels' salary. San Jose gets Zach Sortini, Buddy Robinson, and a 2017 7th-round pick. What did you guys think of the pick, just to start? Zach, I'll start with you.
San Jose absolutely fleeced Ottawa.
All right. Hockey Jerk.
Yes, I agree completely. And you look at the Arizona Coyotes in the summer, you look at what they got back in exchange for taking on bad salaries. The Coyotes were able to pick up Jacob Chikrin. They took Lawson Krause from the Panthers. And this is just so the other team would give that up just so they could get rid of their contract. And so I'm very surprised that Ottawa wasn't like, well, you want to get rid of Wingels, how about you give us insert depth forward here?
Right.
Yeah. And you know what the real key part of this for me is, one, the Sharks get another 7th-round draft pick. Doug Wilson always seems to find players down there. He's got 3 now in the 7th round this year. I hope he keeps them all. So we can trade that. The first is kind of, if Jake Ottinger's there, fine. Second's already gone. Keep those 7s. I think what this also does, it clears up a roster. First, let me back up. Rewind. This trade accomplishes a whole lot of everything for the entire organization. It gives them a little bit more cap flexibility going into the trade deadline to add a very affordable depth scorer. I'm really looking at you, PA Pronto over. Am I saying that right, Pronto? I always get that wrong. Parenteau, thank you. Over in New Jersey, I think he would be a really smart add closer to the deadline. Super affordable.
You could probably also say the same about Radim Verbata too.
Yeah, but it gives them a little bit more flexibility. It gives them a roster spot. It also sends a message, I think, to the Barracuda. You guys are really good. You're really young and you're really small. Here's some size to go to your roster that can skate with you. So, and that's a kind of developmental step that is going to help, not this year, not next year. This is what will help the Sharks for the next 15 years. These young kids, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, how young this cohort is. Now they've got some extra leadership, some more size. They're really well equipped to make a very, very long run in the AHL playoffs. That's the kind of experience and team building things that when these young men are on the San Jose Sharks, they're going to look back on and have helped them develop. And so good on Doug Wilson for identifying that, saying this team needs more of something, and not this team being the NHL, but the AHL team, going out and getting it while giving your NHL franchise the flexibility it needs, and then retooling the kids with something they need. He literally checked every single box in this trade. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm fine with this trade. I think that when you look at it, I mean, it makes room for someone like a Carpenter to come up and play.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. I think that the fact that guys are getting opportunities now, that's great, because honestly, and I've dragged this out many times and I beat this horse to completely death, but the money that you were paying Wingels for what Wingels was supposed to be were completely not aligned at all. Like it was a bad contract. I don't know. I don't want to go as far as say it was Adam Burrish bad, but it was really bloody bad. And then, based on what we hoped Wingels would turn into. So I think the fact that you're getting more stuff to go, the retained salary doesn't really bother me. I mean, if retaining salary is what you have to do to not give them not to give up a Ryan Carpenter or, someone that you actually have use for, I'm fine with retaining. I mean, he's got 1 year left on his deal. July 1, that cap is gone. It's not like we're going to be paying that next year. So I'm fine with that. I don't mind the trade, but I guess it does lead me to a question that I've kind of been asked a couple of times, and it's like, with Nieto and Wingels going for not a whole lot, did Doug Wilson hold on to both too long, and did he get too little, flat out? Jerk, I'll start with you on that.
Nieto, I thought they sold him off, I think, at the right time, because he was supposed to be a 13th forward, and that's what he was. There was no real stock in him for this season, if you ask me, beyond, like I said, being a 13th forward. Wingels is a different story. I mean, it's so hard to know when the best time to trade a guy is, and looking back, you could say the best time to trade him was after that season the Sharks missed the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But even then, at the time, you don't know that that's the best time. And I don't know, I really expected Wingels to not start the season in San Jose. And so when he did, I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe he'll stick it out till the deadline, or he'll stick around for the playoff run and then just walk. So I was kind of surprised by the timing of the trade, but not surprised by the trade itself, if that makes sense.
Oh, I think that's fair. What do you think on that topic, Zach?
Matt Nieto just kind of, he came out his first 2 seasons, there was a lot of promise, and then, last year happened, and it happened to Tommy Wingels too. Is this where they just couldn't crack a Peter DeBoer lineup, or were these players just kind of muscled out and we should have seen more of them? I generally lean to Matt Nieto is maybe a 4th line speedster, so there's not a whole lot you're going to get there, especially in an expansion draft year. Why are teams going to give up players like this? They're just going to be floating around, so that doesn't bother me. Wingels, I've already talked about that trade. I thought it was a brilliant move. I thought Wilson got a lot done with that trade, and I was really pleased with it. So I think that he did well. I mean, obviously you would have liked to get something for Nieto, like another 7th round pick. Maybe in 2019, 2020, who cares?
I just kind of want the Sharks to just have the microphone for the entire 7th round.
Yeah.
And just make 30 straight picks. That's what I want. Exactly.
We'll take Justin Braun number 2. We'll take Joe Pavelski, part 4. Heck, Winkles was a 6th round pick. LeBanc was a 6th round pick. There's Joakim Ryan was a 7th round pick for the Sharks. There's been a lot of really good players that have come through this. Joachim Blichfeld, he scored the winner with 3 seconds left for the Portland Winterhawks last night.
Right.
He had an excellent World Juniors. He was the Sharks 7th round pick last year. So now that we're beating this point into everyone's head, now everyone's going to turn on, Sportsnet for the 7th round whenever the Sharks are picking. So good job, us.
I'm going to do it. Good job, us. All right. So obviously, the one thing that the Tommy Wingels move did emphatically was create enough cap space to activate Hurdle off of the LTIR. So far we saw him on the first line in a game where I feel like I didn't watch this game, but from what I was told, I didn't miss anything. Yeah. So where should Hurdle play now that he's missed so much time this season? Where do you guys see Hurdle playing? And I guess by extension is, we have a bunch of guys that are obviously down with the AHL squad right now. Who's coming back up? Zach, I'll start with you.
What a great question. I'm not in the camp that Tomas Hurdle is a center in the NHL. I think with his speed and ability, wasting him on the 3rd line is in fact just that, a waste. So I would really like to see him return to the left wing on the big line. The Sharks have had trouble finding left wings that really stick anywhere this whole season. You look at the left side of that lineup, it's been a floating hodgepodge of players of whoever they're trying to get going. So I would plug Hurdle back in there, and he really helps the Joes with his speed. I think that solves that problem. That probably puts Marleau, Couture, LeBanc as your second line. LeBanc, I think, should be coming up, even though he had a goal and assist last night for the Barracuda. Seems like every time he goes to the AHL, he just scores 2 points, comes right back to San Jose. That should keep on happening here in the next day or two. And then, the third line, I think it's a good problem to have. Mike Haley came off the IR. You have Ryan Carpenter playing well. So if you can really blur the lines on who your third and fourth line is with that assortment of players, that's probably the best thing, right? You've got two lines that are playing so well, you're not sure who's the fourth.
Yeah. So you think like a Ward, Kearney, Donskoy? If Donskoy's healthy, I don't know what his status is right now.
Yeah, there's really not much information that's coming out. But I mean, he's going to be back. They didn't lose him. So at some point when this team all gets all healthy, that's going to be something to watch. And then I think you do have a bit of a question now as to who is the other depth forward. Ryan Carpenter has certainly made his case, though.
Yeah, I mean, Carpenter, of all the players that got sent back down, Barclay Goodrow got sent back down, Timo Meier got sent back down, Kevin LeBanc got sent back down. Carpenter was not among those guys sent down, so I don't know if that's just, they couldn't overload the AHL roster, or if they're actually, they're saying, hey, kid, and not that Ryan Carpenter's a kid, but, here you are. So I don't know if there's anything too much to read into that, but I'm not opposed if there's something to read into that. Did I forget?
It could just be a straight up reward. If he's playing this well and stepping in, giving him the holiday break with the NHL pay grade increase, stay at home, relax, rejuvenate. Here's a little bonus for playing so well and being a key part of the organization. That I'm not saying that's what happened, but those types of things do happen.
Jerk, what are your thoughts? Who's coming up? Who's going down? Where's Hurdle playing?
I don't know. I would like to see Hurdle play center eventually, but I do agree with Zach that playing him on the third line is a waste considering the offensive skill set that he has and the speed he provides. I think he should go right back up with the Joes. I think that's a slam dunk. LeBanc, again, another guy who should come back up. As you said, goes to the Barracuda, scores 2 points.
Yeah.
And he should come back, and I think he's found a home next to Logan Couture on that second line. And I kind of want to see the chemistry they can develop. I think Ryan Carpenter should have been here from day one of the season, so I hope he sticks around. I'm thinking Timo Meier probably stays with the Barracuda, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because he's 20. He's got plenty of time to show what he's got at the NHL level. I'm more curious to see with Hurdle coming back what kind of situation it creates for Bodker, because we've seen him bounce around the lineup quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When I was kind of just going through the lines in my head, I didn't even have Bodker in them.
I think that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm trying to think of who I'd take out of the lineup at this point for Bodker. I just putting you guys say putting Hurdle on the third line's a waste. Putting Bodker on the fourth line is even bigger waste if he could actually do anything that he was supposed to do. But I don't think he's your fourth line player either, right? You talk about guys playing roles. What the hell is Bodker's role going to be on the fourth line? I do want to see, I still think that the Sharks brass see Hurdle's future at center, but with how much of the season he's missed and getting back in, I don't think keeping him with Thornton and Pavelski's the worst idea on the planet. I think that it lets him get back up to speed because, he's probably still got to shake some there's obviously cobwebs that need to be shaked off there. So I think that leaving him on that line, you're kind of protecting him a little bit. And then, you know, Marlowe's been tough, man, because I mean, like, he's had some really good hockey lately. And so it's like, to me, if you're not putting Hurdle down there, I'd put Marlowe down there. But now that Marlowe's scoring, maybe you leave him on the second line with Couture. And I think I agree. Kevin Labanc is the guy that should be on the other wing on that second line. You know, Donskoy, Tierney, Ward, I don't think's a terrible combination. I mean, you know, but then that leaves your third line, right? And oh man, I mean, I'd like to see Ryan Carpenter stay up, but you've already got, you know, and play that center if no one else is going to, you know, push Tierney down. Yeah, I mean, Carpenter, you got Haley, Bodker, who am I missing? Like
Carlson.
And Carlson, yeah, I mean, and Carlson should be in the lineup every night as far as I'm concerned. So
Right.
I don't know if you're going to rotate Haley and Bodker. Like, I have no idea. But yeah,
I think some hodgepodge of Joel Ward, Michael Bodker, and Mike Haley, depending on what the team needs, you know,
Right.
rotating two of those three. I'm not against that. Rob Iman in the chat is asking about Goldobin, and I just wanted to touch base on that. I've thrown a lot of slings at Goldobin over the last couple of years. The last 15 games, he's really turned it around. We've said it before on this show. My issue with Goldobin is, for me, my appraisal of his skill set is that he's a top six or bust player. He's not going to be able to match in there with a Ryan Carpenter or a Chris Tierney. So I think you keep Goldobin on the farm. You hope that he keeps this level of play, especially away from the puck up. And next year, with Patrick Marleau being a very real and big question mark as far as returning, that's your new left wing on the second line.
Yeah, and I completely echo all of that. I really like what Goldobin's done with the Barracuda this year, but there's nowhere, like, now that everyone's getting healthy again, I mean, your top two lines are basically set. I would much rather still have, as good as Goldobin's been, Labanc is still the guy that you leave on that second line. There's just no way. So Goldobin, I don't trust on my third or fourth line enough. And I don't think that's playing to his strengths as a player. So
Right.
Goldobin's absolutely a guy where if you can't find a place for him in your top six, you don't bring him up. And that's not a slight against Goldobin. That's just a healthy NHL roster that, you know, that are in the NHL for a reason at this point.
Right.
So, you know, obviously now that we've finished the All-Star weekend trades are going to be all the buzz now up until the deadline, which is what, March
1st.
See, I had it mostly. So obviously when, you know, stuff happens here, obviously names are going to be linked to the Sharks. And one of the most recent names to be linked to the Sharks was actually Shane Doan. Elliot Friedman linked him to the San Jose Sharks. What say you, Hockey Jerk?
I'm not really surprised. I feel like he's one of the guys who's linked to the Sharks every year, along with PA Parento, as we mentioned earlier. You know what? I think that Shane Doan should have signed with the Sharks when he went to UFA in 2012, but I feel like since then he's slowly, I don't know, gotten worse, I guess. It's just going to be another one of those guys like Ward or Bodker where the price tag is high and the expectations are, I want to say high, but kind of up there, and then he's just sort of floating around.
How much does Shane Doan make?
Let me pull that up really quick for you.
All right.
So we have the Arizona Coyotes, the Desert Dogs, and he is making $5 million US.
Is that his actual cap hit, though?
Yep.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, no, Shane Doan at $5 million. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Wow. Shane Doan's agent. Look, I don't mind Shane Doan as a
Agent of the
player.
year right there, though. If we ever go pro, we're calling Shane Doan's agent.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I don't dislike Shane Doan. I think Shane Doan is the dirtiest, cleanest guy in the league, which is nice to have on your team sometimes. A guy who can absolutely tear your face off and somehow not get called for it. But I mean, at that price tag, the parts you would have to move out to make that work would just hurt this team long term. And I don't feel like the Sharks are a Shane Doan away from winning the cup. So that's a hard pass for me.
Unless the Coyotes inexplicably are desperate to get Michael Bodker back and have decided that the perfect complementary winger for him would be Joel Ward, that makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. I mean,
and the scary part is you would need both of those to make the cap work.
Pretty much. Like it's just not gonna happen. Also, Kevin Shattenkirk listed the Sharks on his list of teams that he would waive for. I don't, and again, this goes back to you would have to give up a ton to get him, and then you're gonna lose. Not only are you gonna give up too much to get him, but then you are gonna lose someone really important in the expansion draft trying to cover all your D. I'm not wrong here, right?
No, you're absolutely right. And even if hypothetically the Sharks acquire Shattenkirk, let's say they keep him, you're probably losing Vlasic when he goes to UFA, and Brendan Dillon isn't gonna want to be stuck on the third pair for his whole career either.
Wouldn't Justin Braun have to go the other way in that deal?
That's the first thing that jumped in my mind. That would have to be at least part of it just to open up the spot, especially with the lefty-righty combinations that DeBoer seems to favor.
Yeah, to me, it would have to be Justin Braun. And I don't know, I like Shattenkirk, and I think Braun gets an undue amount of hate sometimes among Sharks faithful. But, I don't know. I think with the money, that you would have to pay him because he's going UFA too, right?
Yeah, I think at best it'd be a sideways move.
Yeah, I don't think it makes us any better because with the money that you'd have to give him and then turn around and give Vlasic, it's a lot of money on defense, especially with Burns coming in at 8 going forward. In my opinion, anything else you guys have on that?
I just don't think the Sharks need that big of a piece. You look at where this roster's at, the big pieces are there. They've got their stud young goaltender. They've got a dependable bargain basement backup that is completely underutilized. They've got Logan Couture. They've got Joe Thornton. They've got Joe Pavelski. Patrick Marleau shows signs of life for half the season or so. You have a very good young prospect coming up in a Kevin LeBanc. Tomas Hertl's healthy. These are huge pieces that they have spent years developing, keeping, etc. Even Vlasic's deal that he signed 4 years ago now looks phenomenal.
Oh my God, that's the best deal in hockey.
Right. So you've laid all this groundwork and you're going to blow it up for a run with Kevin Shattenkirk?
Yeah. No,
and Shane Doan. Don't forget Shane Doan.
Yeah, and Shane Doan. All of them. All players. Matt Duchene, they're all coming here. Gabriel Landeskog, we're taking all of them.
See, Landeskog, at least for me, that addresses an actual need, which is figuring out what's going on there at the left side. So if the Sharks demand that Tomas Hertl be a centerman, now the left wing really is a total question mark. So at that point, a Landeskog, does make sense to me.
Right.
But with the deepest blue line 1 to 10 that this franchise has ever had, adding Kevin Shattenkirk, that doesn't make sense to me.
No.
I think if anything, the Sharks at the deadline this year are going to be like last year, where they pick up some depth pieces and that's it. The Sharks have been burned by the big ticket superstar acquisition, and we talked about it earlier. P.A. Parento, Radim Verbata, guys like that who make very little money but are effective in their positions are the guys that the Sharks are going to go after.
Yeah, I think that that makes a ton of sense. Before I move on to the Barracuda, I have one more question that's not on the thing, so I'm sorry to blindside you with it. But obviously, we've watched Patrick Marleau inch ever closer to 500, which this doesn't change anything, right? I've been very, very vocal on After Dark that this doesn't change anything. Am I completely out of bounds here, or am I just thinking with my brain instead of my heart like everyone else?
Not unless every time he scores a goal, he gets a year younger.
The curious case of Patrick Marleau.
Isn't it though? Like, I mean, because here's what I do. I look at Patrick Marleau and I get the sentiment. I get that he's been here his entire career. But at the same time, I also remembered watching him, yes, he's had a good season this year, but I get ever so scared of the streaky score in the career year. Well, or not in the career year, but in the contract year, sorry.
Right. And you look at it, and professional players, their contract years generally outperform their career averages, and that's a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's interesting and kind of not when you stop and think about it is that Patrick Marleau has made two big lunges at 500. With and that just really epitomizes how streaky of a scorer he's been for years and years and years. I don't think it changes anything. I think that, the ball is probably in his court if he wants to stay, but it's got to be at the money that Wilson's going to want.
Right.
Because it's going to be a diminished role. So you might, it might be, hey, Patrick, or will you take, Michael Bodker money to be our third line left wing?
I think it's got to be even less than Bodker, though.
Well,
but how do you insult that Bodker money?
But yeah, I mean, how do you also look at Patrick Marleau and say we're going to pay Michael Bodker more than you?
Right.
I mean, yeah. I think he's done. He's able to do more. And he's still one of the faster players in the NHL on a team that needs team speed. So it's an interesting conundrum. This doesn't all of a sudden mean that, oh my gosh, he has to come back. We'd be lost without him. I think that's just not the case. His skill set isn't the same as Joe Thornton.
Right. No, and that's the thing. Like, I know a lot of obviously these things happen, right? Where, hockey fans' memories are basically as long as a goldfish. We remember the last two games and forget everything else. In the last couple of games or last three games or whatever, Marleau's got all those goals and Thornton can't score on a goalie anymore. So, I mean, but to me, Thornton just offers more long term than Patrick Marleau does. Like, we don't count on Joe Thornton to be, even a 20 goal scorer at this rate. Like, we just need him to run the offense and let everyone else score.
Right. And Joe Thornton, he's lost a step, sure, but his game has never been predicated on speed.
Right.
Yep. So great. You lost something that you really didn't utilize in the first place. Tragic, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, I still stand firm. I'm not saying that Marleau can't come back, but if Marleau comes back at the money that would cost this team the future, basically, I'm not fine with that. Winning should always take precedent over sentiment, period.
Yep.
It's a business, but it's also, the business is winning. And that might sound harsh, but I just can't get behind this newfound, okay, Marleau's scoring goals now, and now everything's supposed to change. It's not.
Right. Yeah, and you look, prime example of this all should go down is you look at a guy like Jaromir Jagr. He's paid his dues over and over again, and he's still a very good player for how old he is. Yet, it's never about, at least at this stage in his career, it's never about money. It's very I want to play, I'll take what you give me.
Right.
And I think Marleau needs to be the same way.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, no one disagrees. Vlasic, Jones, Hurdle obviously need to be taken care of first. No one's disputing that. but I think that there'll be money left over. Like there is money. You could still pay one of Joe Thornton or one of Patrick Marleau, and in my opinion, it should be Joe Thornton, and still have more than enough to pay all those guys. But you have to choose between Marleau or Thornton, in my opinion, depending on how much the ask is for how much they want for money, because I don't think there's enough money to pay for both of them. That simple. All right, so moving on. San Jose Barracuda played a couple games this weekend. First game they played on Super Road Trip 2017, as I've dubbed it. The Barracuda beat who did they beat? The Grand Rapids Griffins. We actually did
That's a negative.
What?
Did I stutter?
It's a negative?
They beat the Stockton Heat.
Oh, did they?
Yep, they beat them 5-0 on Troy Grosnick's 6th shutout of the season.
Oh man, was that a weekday game that I missed? I'm sorry.
That was a Wednesday game that I went to Stockton and watched.
That's right. You did go to Stockton and watch that game. Did I watch that game? I don't know what I was doing. I was probably doing homework. All right, sorry. I apologize. Yes, we beat the Stockton Heat because the Stockton Heat must be beaten at all times.
That's actually 4 consecutive wins against said Stockton Heat.
And you know what? We're going to play them 800 more times. So let's hope this streak continues.
Yay!
Zach, tell us about the Stockton Heat game.
Well, I kind of spoiled it. They won.
There you go. Good deal.
It was just really an excellent effort. It was none of the reinforcements were down. Tim Heed made it into the game, but Meyer, LeBanc, Robinson, and Saturini.
Is that who
they weren't playing, but Grosnick had another one of his excellent outings and really shut the door. The defense played really well in front of him. After the game, he said there was really only one puck that really surprised him, but pucks were getting cleared. The lanes were open. He was just having an easy time tracking the puck all night.
Awesome.
Yeah, Daniel Regan had 2 goals.
Man.
His first 2-goal AHL game as a professional.
Wow. So obviously no longer on crutches.
No, and in fact, he really got out there after the game. He said it didn't even register. He got out there, got going, and just mentally, after the first shift, it wasn't a thing.
Right, I forgot about that game because I remember everyone when they got sent down, and I'm kind of like, this sounds more paperish to me because the team, like I know we talked about this on Twitter, and the team not always the best source for finding out who's up or down, but I thought that the fact that they didn't even announce it was peculiar, and it turned out to be more of a paper transaction than anything else for LeBanc and Meyer. Which brings us to Friday night, where the Barracuda did beat the Grand Rapids Griffins on Super Road Trip 2017.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I watched this game. This was I was sad that I did not get to see Sadaway, but these things happen. Barracuda got outshot, but I thought we talked about this too, Zach, on the Barracuda After Dark that we did, where
Pirate After Dark,
yes. Where the Barracuda did a really good job of holding the Griffins out to the outside, and really they took a lot of shots, but they were a lot of low percentage shots, which I feel like that's a story that we've seen the Sharks play a couple of times, where it's like, man, the Sharks had all these shots, and I'm like, yeah, but goalie was stopping all of them. Gaudreau had a goal. Goldobin had 2 goals, and Julius Bergman with another goal for the Barracuda in the win. What was your thoughts on this game against Grand Rapids?
Again, the defense really pulled off yet again what it did in Stockton, where there were chances, there were shots, but really nothing was all that threatening. The Russian kid, Svechnikov. Bless both of you. It's a terrible cold we have going around. He had the only goal for the Griffins, and really that game, and even the Admirals game the next night, like that game on paper looked a little bit closer, but watching that, it was like, no, the Barracuda are going to win this. We're just delaying the inevitable. Especially with Robinson. they just add so much size and a good amount of speed to this already quick lineup. And even with these two, these two, older veterans, the Barracuda are still the youngest team in the AHL, even with these guys coming in. So it was just another one of those games. It was really good to see Goldobin in this 3-game stretch. I thought he was highly impressive. There was a play, I was sitting with the media team with Stockton. We were all talking about Goldobin, and he took a big hit to spring. I believe it was Bergman who got the pass to Brian Moore, who scored. And it was kind of that moment where a year ago you would have never seen Goldobin knowingly absorb a hit to make a play.
Right.
So it was just, and then you saw him get the two, the goals in the consecutive nights after that. So there's just been a real nice stretch for Goldobin in these 3 games.
The one thing when I was watching the Griffins game too, I mean the announcing team was also really, really impressed with Goldobin throughout the game as well.
Yeah.
Which I thought is always nice, because it's always nice. I mean, I said this on Friday, but you get all these teams where, the Barracuda, obviously because of being in the Pacific Division and AHL travel being what it is, that they really just play the rain, they don't even play all the teams in their division as much as they play some of them, like the Heat and the Rain and the Condors and Gulls. Yeah. It seems like that's where the bulk of their games are. You don't see Tucson as much as one might think you would. You don't see, obviously, Texas as much as one might think you would. But
and luckily, we don't see much of San Antonio.
Yes.
God, that team's bad.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting because obviously, like, there's such a comfort level between all these teams. So it's really interesting to see when the Sharks when the Barracuda line up against a team like Grand Rapids, where there's no familiarity there, just to, and these are both the Admirals and the Griffins. For people that don't know, these are 2 really good teams. These teams have respectable winning percentages, and they're the top 2 teams, I believe, in the Central Division. So it's I think that it's nice that they came out and played, but it's also nice to hear what like their announcers have to say about the team, because they don't have the familiarity like that the Condors guy's going to have, or the where it's kind of just old hat for them, because they're going to play 1,400 times a season.
Right.
So I think it's nice when players like Goldobin stand out to people that haven't seen them, where because I think that really shows. I mean, obviously they're going to talk about the guys that really stand out because they don't really have a familiarity with the team at all. So for Goldobin to get so many positive mentions, I think really lends to what we've been saying for the past few weeks on the show, where Goldobin's really starting to figure things out. And I just rambled forever.
No, I mean, he is, and it's something that we keep. It's a touchstone because it's been such a departure from what we've seen, really what his body of work has been. And so now all of a sudden you're seeing a back checking, forechecking, take a hit to separate a play or to create a play, or at least once in a game, I've seen him lay a hit to separate a puck carrier from a puck, and come up with it, which, if you think about it, that's about the most anti-Goldobin thing that you could ever do. It's like willfully initiate physical contact.
Yeah.
Really? And he's good at it. He's really good at it.
And I think the only thing that kind of scares me, that if Goldobin for some reason can't crack the roster next year, we're just going to lose him to the KHL.
He's definitely a KHL flight risk. I that part, as I'm willing to admit that I might have got sold a little short on the ability. That's certainly rounding out his KHL flight level or flight risk is it's very, very high. I mean, nothing's 100%, but boy. I mean, would you say what, at least a coin flip at 50-50, if not maybe even leaning KHL?
I think if he doesn't have a spot on the NHL roster, I think he's gone.
Without a doubt?
without a doubt. I don't think he stays in the AHL. I think he goes to the KHL. He's going to get better money.
Right.
It might come in a paper bag, and it might not come at all, but theoretically, the money's better.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't talk to the guy, so I don't know. I just feel like that's just kind of. I just, because Goldobin thinks he's great, which I guess you want a professional hockey player to think that they're great, but I don't know.
I mean, that's not the sense I get.
Maybe this is Don Cherrying us here a little bit, which is possible. I fully admit that.
Yeah, I mean, well, how do you say Toronto? Do you say Tirana?
I do say good Ontario boys.
Okay, but how do you say Toronto?
I used to say Toronto.
Okay, see, so no, you're definitely not Don Cherry.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't yell it. You don't yell it and add extra vowels. So
right,
That's true.
exactly.
I do butcher a lot of players' names, though.
I caught Coach's Corner for the NHL All-Star Edition. Boy, Don was not happy to be there, was he?
No.
Somebody's going to pay a lot more attention to that contract next go around. Anyway, talking to Goldobin, you do want to have some level of bravado, and I think even
for sure
Kevin Labanc has a bit of that, which I really like, where it's like it's swagger, it's confidence.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get to that level of hockey without it.
Right, but there, and especially in hockey, there's still that team attitude. I think that Larionov, who is Igor Larionov, who is the agent for Nikolai Goldobin, he's been around a lot more lately. He's made a couple visits and they've talked, and so I feel like that they understand that this is a pivotal year. He certainly seems to be taking more input from the coaching staff this year. You could see them talking to him. You see him playing more of a Roy Sommer kind of game. And I think that that's really it shows that coachability, because that's one thing Peter DeBoer will not stand for. Mm-hmm. If you're not playing Sharks hockey, he doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care. He really does not care. And he'll shuffle you off a line, off a roster. They'll waive you. Yeah. You've got to fit in.
Go ahead. Finish that thought. Sleepy in the chat asking word on what Goldobin did to turn the Vets away last season. Any insight you can offer?
I'm not gonna. I'm sure there's a lot of speculation. There's nothing that I've heard officially, and certainly nothing that anyone's gonna say. I'm aware of all the speculation out there. It is what it is. I mean, honestly, that team had a lot going on, and I wasn't in the room like last year, like I am this year. So, looking at it from afar, that entire roster had a lot of problems, to put it lightly.
Fair enough.
So I don't know if that was really the best situation for such a young, foreign hockey player to walk into.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at that team too, and obviously, the journeyman ratio is much higher than the actual prospect ratio. And then, I mean, let's be honest, that team, Aaron Dell dragged that team into the playoffs.
Kicking and screaming by their hair.
Right, exactly. Like that team seemed like it whenever it had chances to like solidify their own fate into the playoffs, like they weren't having it. No. And I think they only made the playoffs based on another team not doing what they should have done.
Yep. And then Aaron Dell winning the last game, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Aaron Dell he's like, we're going to play hockey till I say no.
Right.
And that's that kind of situation is exactly why I think that the Wingles trade to add Robinson and add Sortini. Thank you. Why that's so important, because it gives these kids that shot in the arm, that physical protection. Severini has 800 penalty minutes in the NHL. I mean, he can handle the tough stuff and he can play hockey. He's really he's an AHL style Michael Haley, where he can play that game, especially the AHL game.
Right.
And if you want to go, he and Joe Hicketts, of all people, got into it in the Grand Rapids game. Those two had two long conversations, and I'm like, I'm really proud of Joe Hicketts. He really truly thinks he's 6'4".
He really does.
he God.
I love Joe Hicketts.
I got to see him live half dozen times with Victoria last year, and he's a wrecking ball, and he hasn't changed a bit. So good on him, but it's like, what are you doing, kid?
Vince in the chat helping me out. It was the Charlotte Checkers that gifted them the playoff berth by also losing their last game. So
that's right.
I knew there was something like that happened. I just couldn't remember the team. But yeah, so anyway, that is the show for this week. Thanks everyone for tuning in and watching. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about our little pirate after dark for the Barracuda game. Look, I mean, honestly, it's something that we might do again. The problem is that for me anyway, is I have a lot going on, which is compacted by school. So to be able to do, the problem with Barracuda games is they're generally on the weekends and the Sharks generally play the same night, which makes it difficult. Obviously, we don't want to run parallel shows or anything crazy like that. Friday, just because the All-Star break was just this perfect storm of, let's do this. This will be fun. I'm not saying it'll never happen again, but when the Barracuda play on a Wednesday night, I can't be up no more than I can be up at the end of a Sharks game on a Wednesday night. So, but if the opportunity presents itself, I'm sure it's something that we'll do again at some point. We just can't make it a regular thing, unfortunately, just schedule wise and just not wanting to burn out.
You'll have to watch our Twitter feeds for those pirate emergency broadcasts.
Yes, watch the Twitter feeds. It would be the Barracuda morning show would be awesome if I did not have school in the morning and my morning was the same as Zach's morning, and
yeah, we could totally. Let's see that I'm up at around 4. That's 7 a.m. Eastern.
No, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Good things could happen. There'd be probably a lot more children involved in the show, but that's that could be a thing. Hockey Jerk, thanks for joining us on Last Minute like you have tonight. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, All-Star break is over, so it's the second half of the season, even though we've played more than half the games. Sharks keep doing whatever you're doing, and I said like 0 words about it, but I think the Barracuda are in a good place, and I want to see what they can do.
Fair enough. Zach?
Let's see. The Sharks come out of the All-Star break on the 31st and play Chicago, which according to my Arundel deployment plan that you can read at thehockeywriters.com should be a start for Arundel. So we'll see if Pete DeBoer continues to rely on my expert analyses. Not a chance, I know. But it makes sense.
Maybe against Toronto, but not
actually, with all these protests going on in LA, Martin Jones might still be in LA.
That's true.
He might have to drive up. So who knows? We'll see. Just updated a bunch of San Jose Sharks prospects over at dauberprospects.com. I'm trying to really get that back up to speed. I haven't done a whole lot in January despite watching a ton of hockey. So I'm going to start getting those notes all compiled, getting that information up. I also was granted some exclusive access to the Stockton Heat players. So I got to speak with Oliver Shillington, Matt Jankowski, and John Gillies. I'll have some interviews with them up at thehockeyprofits.com. And tomorrow, my weekly Barracuda brief hits the Hockey Writers, so check that out in the morning if you want to talk or read about the AHL first thing in the morning, like everyone in our chat seems to be telling us to do, Ian.
That's right.
Everyone, first thing tomorrow, log on to thehockeywriters.com. go to the Sharks tab and read all about my Barracuda brief.
There you have it. I am Ian Reed at I Read Pucknology on the Twitter machine. Obviously, if you like what you saw tonight, please subscribe to our show. Tell some friends about it. Look, obviously it's, this episode was probably a little more shark centric than normal, but we do like to try and cover, shark stuff, obviously, but other interesting things going on in hockey in general, we do like to cover. So if you want a kind of a break from just sharks, then, come here, because we're going to talk Barracuda. We're going to talk other stuff going on in the league. It's going to be awesome. You can catch this wonderful gentleman, Hockey Jerk, on the Pucknologists weekly audio podcast on our audio stream, which you should also subscribe to. SoundCloud, Twitter, TuneIn, iTunes, Google Play,
MySpace.
Yes, absolutely. MySpace. You can totally find us in all those places. I have actually vowed to start trying to write again. I don't know what I'm going to write, but it's going to be some sort of weekly thing. So look out for that on pucknology.net. It's going to be huge. All right, guys.
It's going to be huge.
Have a good one, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you all back. Same place, same time next week. And go Sharks.